Right, because what happened was, it spells out the word ayo. Ayo means where is he? The same way that they asked Avram where's Sarah, they also asked Sarah where is Avram, but it's much more modest to ask for the man first, the man to ask about the woman, the other way around. So it's alluding to the fact they asked both. They asked Avram where Sarah is, they asked Sarah where Avram is. Look at Rashi, there's more to it, but that's what Rashi says. All right? Okay. But we see a very fascinating thing that why did they ask her where she was? To emphasize, I would say, well, she's in the tent, which would kind of, talk about her modesty, that she wasn't just out there. And that's part of like shalom bayis. It helps enhance the marriage. Now we tend to think of shalom bayis is a mitzvah when you have two people married, but they're warring, they're fighting each other. So you step in and you make the peace. That's shalom bayis. Torah says shalom bayis is they can have a perfect marriage. I mean, perfect. That's perfect in the end. Avram had a beautiful marriage. If you can add even the smallest amount of measure of appreciation, what's going to happen to the other? That's called shalom bayis. When you compliment, and say, your husband, he's just so nice today, right? And even if they have a great relationship, that's called shalom bayis too. When you add just this tiniest measure where they'll appreciate each other even a little more, that's shalom bayis. So of course Avram knew how special Sarah was. And of course she knew she was modest. But the fact they asked her and it just reminded him a little more, that little nuance, a little more, that's also called shalom bayis. Shalom bayis is not just to stop the fighting going on, but even to add, even a modicum and slightly more appreciate for one another, that's shalom bayis. Well, and it's important to try to do that. Okay. Let's go to the let's go to the end of the Torah portion. Let's see. Then we'll maybe come back to the middle. It's you can't not learn Vaeira and not talk about the ultimate Akidah, page 100. All right. Okay. Let's see. We'll look at Akidah. And it was after these things that the question is, after what things? Rashi tells us. I'm not going into that now. And God tested Abraham, and Abraham said, "I'm ready." And he said, please take your son, your only son, the one that you love, Yitzchak, and go to the land which I will show you. Right? Okay. And Abraham gets in the morning, he saddles his donkey, and heads off to follows the clouds, follows them, turn to page 102, top of the page. On the third day, Abraham lifts his eyes and he sees the place from afar, and Abraham says to his servants, look at Pasuk K, just interesting, Vayomer Abraham al Na'arav, Yishmael and Eliezer came with him, Shulachem po imachamor. You stay here with the donkey. We'll go further. You stay po, and we're going ko. It's interesting. You stay po, we're going ko, which is itself is very fascinating. And I'll just mention that parenthetically. Po means here. Ko means beyond. Eliezer, Yishmael, you're only connected to the world of po. You can relate to the world here as you see it now. And in this world, the arcade, your eyes cannot fathom an arcade. You can't appreciate what that means. And so I don't want you to be at the present arcade because you live in the world of Po. You live in the world of here and now. And if you can't understand it in the here and now, you can't relate to it. But we can live in the world of Ko, which is beyond. And in that world, Yisroel is shaykh, I'm shaykh to that world. And the Jews are shaykh to the world of Ko. I don't just live in the world of Po, but I live in the world of Ko. I live in the world of beyond as well. It's not just what I see here and relate to now. I'm able to project into a world that's beyond, into a beyond, to relate to that beyond. All right. So let me just...
Wait, how was Ishmael here? Abraham had sent him away.
Yeah, so he actually came back. He had done tshuva, he came back. Yes. Okay. Very good. Yes. Okay. So they go on the way... And then we know the rest of the story. And God, he's about to sacrifice him. And then in verse 11, an angel of God calls out and says, Abraham, Abraham. He said, here I am. Verse 12, he said, do not stretch out your hand against me. Don't do anything for him. But now that I know you are God-fearing, since you have not withheld your son, you're only one from me. Okay? Everyone got that? All right. So, okay, the obvious question is, a few obvious questions, and then number one is, it says God tested Abraham, right? Why isn't this a test to Isaac? I mean, he's the one that's putting his neck on a lion, literally, right? Why is this called Abraham's test, not Isaac's test? Ve'elokim nisas Avram says very clearly, first verse, God tested Abraham. Why isn't this test to Isaac? Number two, it says, God says, now I know, at the end of the test, I know you're God-fearing. Why does it say, now I know that you love God? Why does this prove more the fear of God than the love of God? Right? God says, now I know you're God-fearing. Why can't it say, now I know you love God, you're willing to sacrifice your son, right? So why is it teach more the fear of God, or why does it demonstrate more the fear of God than the love of God? Okay, maybe we'll connect the two together right now. And that's like this. A test. When we talk about a test to the patriarchs, in particular the matriarchs, it means that they're being asked to push themselves beyond. In fact, the word nisa, to test, because the word nes, which means a miracle. Because we're asked, these tests involve something miraculous. What does it mean, miraculous? When you go against your nature, that's a miracle, right? There's nature, and there's something beyond nature called a miracle. If we call this a nes or nisa and refer to it as a miracle, that means we're asking Abraham to do something miraculous. What does it mean to go against nature? What does that mean? What was Abraham's nature? To be a giver, to love. For him to go against his nature and sacrifice and give up a son, that's the ultimate nisayon. Whereas for Yitzchak, we're not dismissing what a great act it was, but it doesn't qualify as a test. Because Yitzchak's nature was just the opposite. It was all about discipline and inner strength. So this is exactly what Yitzchak is. Now again, we're not dismissing the great courage and strength and the discipline, but it doesn't qualify as a test because he's not being asked to do something runs against his nature. If that's the case, we understand why we say that God says, "I see you're God-fearing." Why God-fearing? Because yira, fear, is the midah that allows you to stop another midah. The midah that allows you to conquer, to be kovesh. We say God, just like Abraham was kovesh, he suppressed his compassion. So we want you, God, to suppress as well. Right? Suppress Abraham suppresses compassion to sacrifice son. We want you to suppress your anger for us and save us, right? But it involves an act of suppression. The idea of being able to hold something comes from fear. We've talked about this before, that the emotion that puts a brake on anything else is fear. If I think I told you an example, it's very simple. If you're driving down a one-lane highway and there's somebody driving ahead of you, going 20 miles an hour, on a 50-mile zone, and you're getting really frustrated because you want to move, right? And she's going, right? And you keep going, and and then you flashlight, she's just doing this kind of thing like this, right? So finally, you're cooking, and you're missing every single light, and it gets frustrating. Actually, she's making every light, and you're missing every light, so it makes it even more frustrating. And finally, you both get stuck at a light, you jump out of the car, and you're just gonna yell and scream, right? You jump out of the car, you start yelling, and the person opens the door, and a 6'4" huge guy gets out of the car. All of a sudden, all that anger is gone. Step dead in his tracks. Why? Because fear stopped it dead in its tracks. Fear is an emotion that can stop any emotion dead in its tracks. You can have the biggest lust for something, and if you're afraid you're about to get killed, it stops. Fear is the emotion that stops. So God says, now I know you're God-fearing, because He used the midah of fear to stop your tremendous love for Isaac at this point. Okay. What I want to focus on is on the second verse on page 100. And God says, Kachno espincha, take your son, your only son, the one that you love. Yes. Right?
Why all these introductions?
Huh?
Why all these introductions?
Okay, so Rashi tells us that God was making it incrementally harder. Take your son. She said, I have two sons. Well, I have two only sons. One's Yishmael. One you love. I love him. And in this way, he's he's accentuating the test one step at a time. I want you to take your son. And now that he's your only son. And now he's the one you love. And that really makes the test, so to speak, a little bit harder. All right? Well, the Orach Chaim actually says each one, take your son, your only son, the one you love, is actually parallels. You should love God b'chol levavcha, b'chol nash b'chol meidecha. I'm not going to get to it now. B'chol levavcha, nash b'chol reflects all these three. Not for now, but yes.
He had to be precise because Yishmael was there. If Yishmael had still been off in the east, not there.
Okay, good. That's what it says. He said, I have two only sons. Yishmael's one of them. He says, but the one that you love, he says, but I love them both.
And then Isaac.
All right? Okay, that's all right, okay. So now, the word no, please, kach no, the word please here is a little bit hard to understand. Because please is something you use when you're making a request. This is not a request. This is a command, right? So the word na doesn't seem to be right over here, right? So Rashi, in fact, is going to tell us, you're right, that the word na means please. He's saying, please, I'm begging you, pass this test, because if you don't pass this test, the first 9 that I gave you will be worthless. So God's making a plea. Please pass this test, because if you don't pass this test, the first 9 are worthless. And I want to explain what that means. All right? If you take a look on page 101, he actually says that. God pleaded with Abraham. You see on the left-hand column, almost like 2/3 of the way down. God pleaded with Abraham to withstand this test, because otherwise people say there's earlier sacrifice and tests were without substance. You see that? Okay. I want to share with you, and I may mention in the past, there's a Ran, not so famous, very important Ran. The Ran actually learns that this was never meant as a command. It was a request. Because everyone asked the question, why was this a test to God? To Abraham? If God told Abraham to do it, Abraham's going to do it. Why is this a test? Because God said, I'm not commanding you to do so. I'm making it a request. Meaning that we know there are mitzvot, we call them the letter of the law. We have something called the spirit of law, where God doesn't actually say you must do this, but there's something that I'd like you to do, or I want you to do. Like, let's pick a bad one. Let's say, couldn't you play basketball all Shabbat? Let's assume you don't sweat up and you're within an area. You could. But does it violate any of the letter of the law? No. But does it take away from the spirit of the law when you're not doing it? Right? So, but God didn't say that. Because God says, I want you to figure that on your own. It's like if somebody's father says to his son, I'm really thirsty, could you get me some water? And you say, you know what, I know my father really will love really a cold glass of Coke. And you run so and get him Coke. Even though he asks for water, but you're much more in tune what he really wants, and that shows an intimacy, and you get him the Coke. So God sometimes tells us a certain level, but he wants us to understand him on a more intimate level. So even though God never said, you can't read comic books all Yom Kippur, it doesn't say that at all, but if you understand the spirit of the law, you'll say, you know what, that's not what really God wants. That's not the spirit of the law. Here, God never told him to, it was meant as a request. And the challenge to Abraham was, would he get into that and even fulfill the spirit of the law, not just the letter of the law. And that's why later on God changed his mind. He's not really changed his mind, but hold on for that for now. But the bottom line, according to the Ran, it's fascinating. Nobody else learns this way. It was never meant as a command. It was a request. And the challenge to Abraham is, would you even fulfill not just the letter law, but even the spirit of the law, so to speak? Okay. But Rashi says something else. Rashi tells us that God said, please pass this test, because otherwise the first test, the 9 tests that I gave you, and if you take a look over here, it kind of enumerates on page 100 the different tests that God gave Abraham. He hid underground for 13 years, King Nimrod, fire furnace, leave his home, right? Because of a famine, Sarah was kidnapped. It goes through a bunch of tests. Okay. And God's saying, if you don't pass this test, the first 9, people say we're worthless. Now, I don't get it. Why would that be the case? If you were in school and you had to take a series of 10 tests, and the first 9 you aced, and the last test you flunked, so the professor says, listen, you know what? You're getting a C, you're getting a D. But if he flunked you, you say, excuse me, I didn't say the final is weighted. He said, well, the other 9 tests are worthless. What do you mean worthless? I got 100 on every, right? Normally speaking, most tests, they count for something, but maybe the final test counts more, and whatever the case is. How can God say, if you don't pass test number 10, the first 9 are worthless? What does that mean?
You see that in college? College professors all the time.
Oh, yeah? Okay. But the question is, like, why would it be that way? Why here? Leave alone the college. Why would it be worthless? Why would it take away the first 9 accomplishments of Avram?
Because you haven't learned anything if you can't pass the final test.
Why? Why is that so? Why is that so?
The final test incorporates all the rest of it.
Why he showed? I mean, what? Look what he did.
No. I'm talking about from the point of view of a professor with the course. If you can't pass the final, which is based on the whole course, then obviously you didn't learn.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's really true. But let's talk about in this case here. Yeah, we want to say what?
The last one was by fear, but the other one was by love.
Okay.
If you don't have love and fear.
Interesting. Okay. I don't think all love, but okay, yes.
His wife dying is not the test number 11?
Okay, so we'll talk about the next time. All right. That's next week's parsha. We'll talk about that. All right. That's a good question. Some say that is the last test. Some say it's part B of the Akedah. That's a different conversation. So what does that mean that the first 9 are worthless? So there's 2 ways I want to share with you. One is that in general, the number 10 in Judaism means complete. Right? A minyan, you have 9 individuals. When you have 10, now you have a group, a unit. 10 creates a unit. Even in math, right? You have separate integers, and 10 you go back to 1. It's like a unit, right? So the number 10 represents hashlama, completion, and a unit. And here's a really incredible thing. This last test was going to complete Avraham. And what does that mean? If I have a vase on the table, yeah, and I do a little bit, that's not going to break the vase. But if there was a crack in the vase beforehand, and I do this, it might make the vase crack more. If I yank on my jacket, it's not going to rip. But if I have a rip and a yank, it's going to rip more. What does that mean? Says the morale. When something is whole, there's a certain strength that it has. If there's already something broken, it's vulnerable for more breakage. So says Hashem like this. This last test is going to complete you. How? It's a different conversation. But it's going to complete you. This is number 10. It's not a coincidence. And this is going to complete you as a person. If you're not completed as a person, then the first 9 are also vulnerable to break. Let me give you an example. If a guy, someone says, Rabbi, I know you want me to keep kosher, but I can't. I'm going to keep 70% kosher. Okay? I mean, I once had a guy. He was giving me Russians used to give you a hard time because they love food. So kosher is like really. You're starting with Mashiach over there. You can't, right? So I said, okay, listen, just pick one food group. Pick one food group, and he said, okay, great. No fish, no seafood. I said, that's very impressive. You like seafood? I hate it. I said, that doesn't count, right? That doesn't count, right? But the point is that if a guy says to me, Rabbi, I'm going to be 70% kosher, is that better than nothing? Absolutely. But you know what that means? That means you leave yourself vulnerable for negotiation 30% of the time. Every time. Because every time you say, okay, is this part of the 70? Not 70%, right? No, it's every time when you're not complete, so then you're always leaving yourself open for negotiation. Is this a time I'm going to keep kosher or not keep kosher? And so, but if you're complete, it's end of conversation. Because it's a non-negotiable. Because you made it complete, right? So 10 completes you. If you're not complete, so then you are vulnerable to fall apart. So God's saying, Abraham, pass this test, because if you don't, you're not going to be complete. If you're not complete, you're always going to have this back and forth. Should I? Shouldn't I? That's number 1. And number 2, another explanation why this test, other 9 will be worthless. We know after this Akedah, Sarah dies. And she dies because she hears about the Akedah. Why does she die? Because she hears about the Akedah. What does that mean? The Akedah is the ultimate expression of total sacrifice. Right? I'm giving up. In fact, it's harder to give up your son's life than your own life. So it's the ultimate expression of self-sacrifice. The reason why the Jews are around today is for one reason only. Because we know something called Mesiras Nefesh. We have the ability that we're not going to give up who we are no matter what. That's why we're around today. Without Mesiras Nefesh, we wouldn't be around today. Without the fact that our grandparents and great-grandparents, whoever it was, said, that's it, I'm not giving my Judaism, without it, we would not be around today. When we say Avram had 10 tests, so each test, that obviously Avram had more than 10 tests. You and I have 50 tests a day. Our patience is tested, right? Our temptation is tested, right? Our anger is tested every single day. 10 tests a whole lifetime? I don't think so. It means these were 10 tests that were given not to Avram personally, but Avram, the patriarch, experienced 10 tests that will impact Klal Yisrael. He had his own personal tests as a human being, but he had 10 tests as a patriarch that would affect the genes of Klal Yisrael, so to speak. If Abraham didn't pass this test of Mesiras Nefesh, the Jews would never have inside of them the ability of Mesiras Nefesh. If they didn't have the ability of Mesiras Nefesh, there wouldn't be a Jewish people. If there wouldn't be a Jewish people, what's the purpose of the first 9 tests? So the first 9 will be worthless because without this final test, there won't be a Jewish people. If there won't be Jewish people, what's the point of the first 9 tests? I only gave you those tests for the point of the Jewish people. You follow what's going on? With me, guys? Okay. So when it says the first 9 is worthless, it means because this test is the final test of Mesiras Nefesh. And without that, if we don't have that in our genes, if we don't have that in our makeup, spiritual makeup, we won't be around. If we won't be around, then why did God give Abraham the first 9 tests? And those tests were for the benefit of the Jewish people as well. That's why Sarah died. When she understood the symbolism of the Akedah, what that means, that over like Jewish history, how many sacrifices would have to be made, that is what pained her. When she understood what the Akedah represents, that throughout history there'll be many Akedas. That's what she found so difficult to bear. But at the same time, it's fascinating. We know that Abraham, the sages tell us, could have asked God, 1 second, you cannot tell me to sacrifice my son Isaac. Because you just told me a few minutes earlier, Ki beyitzchak yichol zara, that your legacy will continue through Isaac. You can't tell me to kill him if you tell me my legacy, but he's my future. It makes no sense. But Abraham didn't ask the question. All right? Abraham actually thought that by killing his son, he's killing his legacy. The truth of the matter is that wasn't the way at all. It was only because he was willing to do that much for his son that he had a legacy. I think I explained to you once before, and I'm not going to get to this now, it's really hard, that Isaac died at the Akedah. His soul actually left him. And in fact, that's why God said, stop. Not because I changed my mind, mission accomplished. He actually died. Now, he didn't die in the physical world, he died in the spiritual world. Now, you and I live in a physical world, and we need to do physical actions to make things real. And that's why we need mitzvot, because if we just live in the world of thought, it's not real to us. But an Abraham could live in the world of thought, and it'd be real to him. We need to do physical actions to make it real, but some people, they're so connected in that spiritual world that it's real to them. So God said, Abraham, in that world of spirituality and thought, you did it. So God's not saying, I'm stopping it before it's done. In that world, Yitzchak died. In fact, I mentioned that maybe Yitzchak, the letters Yitzchak spell out Keitzchai, end of life. Because Yitzchak actually experienced the end of life. And that's why, by the way, in the blessings, the first blessing, Shemona Esrei, is Mogen Avram, is for Avram. The second blessing, Mechayim Mesim, is for Yitzchak. Because Yitzchak experienced the resurrection. Yitzchak was the first person. His soul left him, and his soul came back. And his first soul, he was not capable of having children, Zohar says. With the second soul, he was able to have children. I'm not going to get into that now, but that's the case. If that's true, it's amazing. Avram thought, if I kill Yitzchak, I will never have a future. And it's only the opposite. It's only because he's willing to kill Yitzchak that he had a future. So he thought, God, checkmate. You can't tell me to kill my son and say he's the future. But it was the opposite. It was only because he's willing to kill his son, and it actually happened in that upper world, so to speak, that there is a future. And that's what we have to understand as well. We look at the Mesiras Nefesh of Jewish people throughout the age, and we say, how are we going to survive? That's the reason why we have a future. That was the lesson. The lesson is that the Akedah will give you a future. Not going to rob you a future. But that was a test to Abraham. How can Akedah bring me a future? And we have to learn that Akedah is what gives us a future. And that's why without the final test, there would be no future, and we don't need for the 9 tests either. Those are 2 explanations. So now we learn a little bit about the Akedah as well. Why God stopped. It wasn't he changed his mind, but actually it was performed on some level. And it was so real that Abraham did not have to do it in real time, or real life rather. And actually Yitzchak experienced Keis Chai, and Yitzchak becomes the symbol, the poster boy, if I can use that word, for Tchias HaMesim, because he experienced that himself. And I might add, by the way, it's kind of beautiful. Sarah dies now, right? After Sarah dies. Mm-hmm. Isn't that beautiful? It's an amazing thing. Sarah's the first Jew that died, right? Mm-hmm. Tchias HaMesim means that death is not final. Correct?
Yeah, they come back.
Right? Until Hashem introduces into the world Tchiat HaMesim, he's not going to have Sarah die. Because when a Jew dies, it's not forever. So Hashem first has Tchiat HaMesim through Yitzchak. Once Hashem brings Tchiat HaMesim into the world, now Sarah can die, because now her death is never seen as final. She'll come back. And so it's only after Yitzchak and the Akedah that Sarah is able to die, because now her death is never seen as final. You with me? You got that? Okay. So that's another concept. I think we're going to stop here. And to be continued.
Thank
you.
Rabbi, how come in last week Parashat, when Lot was with Abraham, he said he was introduced 2 times. He said Lot, his son, and at the beginning. Lot was introduced like his brothers.
Well, actually, if you look at this, there's a slight nuance difference. At first it says that Vayelach ito Lot, that Lot went with him. And then later on it says Vayelach imo, right? He went with him again. So the first time, when Lot first tagged along with Avram, he saw himself in a subordinate role. Vayelach ito Lot, and therefore Avram was willing to take him, because he's still saying, Avram, you're my role model. later on, the sand shifts underneath, and Lot is kind of ready, making a distance, and he's becoming a more autonomous person. At that point, Avram realizes that his ability to influence and impact Lot is slipping away. And if anything, it's going to adversely affect everybody else around him. That's when he makes that decision to send him away. So there's actually a shift. Vayelech ito Lot. First, he starts out, he's actually subordinate role. But later on, Lot starts, flexing his own muscles and becoming his own person.
Right.
And Avram realizes at this point he's not going to listen to me anymore, and now he's a danger to everybody else.
No, on the beginning, after Lech Lecha, it says on 4.
Yeah, Vayelech ito Lot.
Yeah, and Lot went
With him, yeah.
Abraham. Then it said Sarah and Lot, his brother's son. The Lot is
It's nephew.
Yeah, is introduced, like, they tell us who he is. Okay, it's Lot, we know who he is. Why was he mentioned like that?
No, first it introduces the people and says that
No,
Lot
he
was
said
his-
Abraham took his wife Sarah and Lot. Then Lot is introduced. He said Lot, his brother's son. Why was Lot introduced 2 times here?
Okay, so the second one, Vayelech ito Lot, certainly sounds like it wasn't Avram's idea, right? Vayelech ito Lot means that what? That Lot tagged along, right? And really, he wasn't really supposed to be coming along. But once he came along, Vayikach, Avram now embraced him and said, I'm willing to take you under my wing. In other words, Lot's a big liability.
Right.
And Avram understands that. And he wasn't going to take him originally. Vayelech ito Lot. But once he comes, it's a very fascinating, sometimes you don't have responsibility for something. But if it comes your way, it becomes your responsibility. Hashem sends you something. So once Lot's there, Vayikach, he takes him, he embraces him and says, okay, now you're under my charge, you're under my wing, I'm going to really try to take care of you. And he does, even though it's quite challenging, until Lot tries to make that thing. So Vayikach could also mean that he's... You see that?
One more question.
One more question, okay.
I'm sorry. When the Pharaoh gives him all these animals,
Say again?
the animals.
Yes.
When Abraham, the she-donkey is mentioned only. It doesn't say camel and female camel. He said donkey and then female donkey.
Wait, Pasuk Tezvav? Tezayin?
What page and Pasuk?
Tanot.
And Pasuk Tezayin says, Vayilo tzon ubakar chamorim avadim shvachos v'asonos. Says chamorim first.
Gave him camel and.
It says both.
Then
In
it
Tezayin it
says
says both.
female donkey. In
Wh-
the
Which Pasuk? Which verse?
let me find it. It says she donkey. I find it.
Oh, there's so much on this parsha. It's just like so hard to pick and choose. I feel very
Yeah, we
guilty.
didn't even
I feel
talk
guilty
about
picking and choosing.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Oh, we do Stam and Amorah. Oh, maybe we'll do it next time. Stam and Amorah. It's a whole. We gotta do Stam and Amorah also. Yeah, that's a lot.
The subject
Oh, yeah, I
of
wouldn't think you were
Daf
fine.
Yomi the last few days.
Oh yeah. Stam and
Today
Amorah.
actually.
It's interesting. One thing I did see from the Stam and Amorah, it always bothered me. The whole story, at the end of the story, when Lot's running away, he says to Malach, "Oh, do me a favor. Let me go to this place called Soar, right? And then, because I can't go any further." And Malach says, "Sure, fine." Now, Soar is one of the cities that was supposed to be destroyed. So I don't get it. Avram davens for all the cities, nothing happens. And then Lot says, "Oh, by the way, can I go there?" And Malach says, "Sure, not a problem." Like, what happened? You ever get that? Right? The request that Lot makes for Tzoar is Avram was davening for those 5 cities. And Hashem said, sorry, no go. Right? So how come when Lot asks for it, the Malach says, okay, fine. What happened? Avram's tefillah couldn't accomplish. I want to say Avram's tefillah couldn't accomplish, and Lot could accomplish. So I saw an interesting idea, very simple idea, very practical idea. And that is that Tzoar only had 9 people, 9 tzaddikim. Therefore Hashem said, can't do it. But then, when Lot said, let me go there, Malach said, you'll be number 10. He said, but you better run there first, because I can't do anything until you get there. Meaning, because until you get there and make number 10, I got to destroy that city. Right? So that's the one, he was like number 10. And by the way, it says Soar. The first it spells Soar without a Vav, and now it spells it with a Vav. And the Vilna Gaon always says that if you're adding the Vav, it means there's an added dimension. So now you have 10, there's a million, there's an added dimension. Soar gets a mole, so to speak, for that reason. So it's a fact, I would never understand, this reason I just saw that idea. Yeah, he was asking, yeah.
He said for his sake he was acquired sheep, cattle, donkeys, slaves,
Female donkeys.
and female.
But here, donkeys is male.
Yeah, I know, but why not female
Why
cattle?
not
Why not female sheep? Why not female camel? why the donkey is female?
All right, we'll throw in some female counsel.
You see, it was given camels, and how come the donkey?
I mean, why only?
The donkey is female.
It was like SUVs those days. You know?
Also, I heard very nice thing about when he went to the Akedah. He had very good questions to ask God. He said, God, you gave me only son.
Right.
So he kept quiet.
Right.
He said, okay, you kept quiet here. Now, later, when it comes Yom Kippur, the descendant of Isaac is coming to do Teshuvah.
Right.
And I could ask them very good questions. Say, you did this.
Right.
You
Keep
kept quiet,
Yes,
I'm going to
yes,
keep quiet.
Yes, very nice.
So-
Very nice. Very good. Very good. Yes.
Rabbi David Foreman makes an interesting point. If you look at the number of families, number of people in Lot's family, you have Mr. and Mrs. Lot, two unmarried daughters, a son and his son and this daughter-in-law, and two married daughters and their husbands. There were 10. The minyan
Yeah.
was supposed to be 10. Then the angel comes to save Lot and says, bring your whole family.
But they laugh it off, so maybe they lost the 10.
They lost the 10.
Right.
There were only 4 who were willing to
Right.
go.
Right.
So they didn't have their minyan, and that's
Right.
why
Right.
it was destroyed. What I hadn't seen before was the concept of Zohar having 9 and that making the 10. So,
Yeah, that's
Oh.
interesting. Yeah.
But Lot tried to emulate Abraham, but did it in such bizarre
Yeah, we have to
ways.
talk about Lot another time. Lot's is an enigma.
Yeah.
Lot's an enigma. On the outside, he looks pretty kosher. On the inside, he's nothing. In fact, the word Lot, the Zohar says, comes from the word light. Light means cursed. Light is a curse. Curse means something you're empty on the inside. He was really on the outside. He showed something. On the inside, he was totally empty. That's how different comes.
And therefore, did he count as a righteous person to make a minyan?
It's interesting. He did. According to this plot, he did. It's interesting, by the way. You learn a minyan. Where do you learn a minyan from?
Here and
Morocco.
the Morocco.
Who were Rishayim. Who were Rishayim. Right?
Azov.
All right.
Thank you for coming. Forward to see you next week.
Can I get a ride home with you, or are you going that way?